Good morning. Assalamualaikum. Selamat Hari Raya. If it's not too late for me to wish it. So I'm honored to be the first speaker of the day because you're very fresh still, so less likely to sleep, especially this is an emergency of some sort. So without wasting any more time, this is me talking about epilepsy emergencies, which is for a brief of introduction. Epilepsy is generally a brain disorder characterized by an enduring predisposition to generate epileptic seizures. So it affects about 50 million people worldwide. In Malaysia, prevalence is about 7.8 in 1,000 people. And so it means that the incidence rate is actually 1 in 26 people will develop epilepsy at some point in their lives. Status epilepticus is one of the most common neurological emergencies requiring immediate diagnosis and treatment, failure of which results in significant morbidity and mortality. Thank you. And seizure termination mechanisms weakens over time. It just means that the longer the seizure continues, the harder it is to stop. So you will see or you will hear me talking again and again about time and rapid and time because time is of essence in status epilepticus. Okay, so it's very important to abort the seizure in the first 1 to 2 hours. Okay, by definition of the International League Against Epilepsy 2015, status epilepticus is defined as a condition resulting from either from the failure of mechanism responsible for seizure termination or from the initiation of mechanism. So in simpler words, it's basically you cannot stop the seizure or you just cannot start to stop the seizure. So which lead to abnormally prolonged seizures. So they define the 2 time points, T1 and T2. So T1 indicates when treatment should be initiated and T2 indicates when long-term consequence may appear. So long-term consequence is your neuronal injury or death, alteration of neural networks, basically neurological deficit lah, right? So in general, the old definition is you need 30 minutes to diagnose. 30 minutes to diagnose status epilepticus. But this is obviously no longer used. 30 minutes is way too long. So generally, we say 5 minutes or more of continuous seizure activity or recurrent seizure activity without return to baseline. But actually, they did define generally 5 minutes for tonic-clonic SE, T1, and T2 is about 30 minutes, but for focal status with impaired consciousness, get about 10 minutes before you should start treatment and more than 60 minutes before the neuronal death appear. But for absent seizure, we still have like 10 to 15 minutes, but the T2 is still unknown. Okay, so again, with the definition, we have status epilepticus and we have refractory status epilepticus, which means that when the seizure is ongoing, following first and second line of drug therapy, and we have a super refractory status where it sounds scary, but because it continues or recurs 24 hours or more after the onset of anesthetic therapy, including those cases where the status recurs on the reduction or withdrawal of anesthesia. So you think that you're out of the safe zone, but sometimes you have that super refractory SE happens. So this is an overview of generally the convulsive, the SE can be convulsive or non-convulsive, mainly it's convulsive. And from that, there's non-refractory comprised from the main ones, but you can have a small percentage of refractory and super refractory. But if you can see from the right, your right side, the refractory SE fatality is very high. So that's why it's very important to recognize that as well. Okay, so this is an old graph, but still relevant. You can see that the time or the percentage of response for the first line therapy will be higher as you treat it faster. So treat fast. Okay, less than 30 minutes, less than 1 hour, then you can see there is a marked reduction of the percentage. Okay, so there are actually 2 main protocol of management. This is from the Emergency Neurological Life Support Management Protocol. And we have a Malaysian Consensus Guidelines of Management of Epilepsy, recently updated in 2024. It's actually Basically the same thing. So for Malaysia one, we have the pre-hospital treatment, early status, established status, and refractory status. But the ENLS is more detailed. Do they have the emergent initial therapy, urgent control therapy, and the maintenance and the refractory SE. So, of course, first of all, you have to know. The thing about status is that you need to diagnose and also diagnose the SE and diagnose the cause at the same time. So it should be simultaneously. It shouldn't be a step by step. Okay, so it should be everything is simultaneously because time is brain, right? So possible or most common etiology processes is metabolic disturbances like electrolyte abnormalities, renal failure, uremia, sepsis, infection, stroke, traumatic brain injury. Drugs, you can be most commonly the non-compliance to drugs, can be drugs intoxication and withdrawal. And this is important because when you recognize there are certain drugs that you can just give the reversal as rapidly. Cardiac arrest and hypoxic injuries, your hypertensive encephalopathy and autoimmune encephalitis. So for chronic processes, you have your epilepsy, known case of epilepsy, but you have that bad breakthrough seizures for whatever reason, chronic alcohol abuse, CNS tumors, and remote CNS pathology. So initial measures, this is what we should know, this is what the patient should know, this is what we should tell the patient and their relatives, which is when they have a seizing patient, they have a seizing person in front of them, first of all, safety first, safety of the patient first. And so you have to place the patient on smooth surface if possible, you remove any harmful objects, loosen tight clothing, and turn the patient to the lateral position because you want to prevent the and as well as you should actually support the head with something soft, like a bundle of cloth or pillow, and avoid placing any objects in the patient's mouth. So this one you have to tell again and again to the family, again and again to the relatives, don't put sudu. Okay, jangan letak sudu dalam mulut. So stay with the patient until he or she recovers fully and gather information about the patient background. So then tell the patient or tell the relative that you need to get the patient to the nearest hospital if the seizure persists beyond 5 minutes, or there's no recovery of consciousness, or there is a recent increase in seizure frequency. So this one, because we have to investigate, so we have to bring him to the hospital. Okay, so for pre-hospital treatments, the pre-hospital care lah, right? So this one is applicable to our emergency care and also the, I think, primary emergency cares as well. Again, back to basics, A, B, C, airway, breathing, circulations, adjuncts if you need, breathing, oxygen supplements, usually we give high flow oxygen to supplements, and also circulation, we need to establish intravenous or intraosseous access. Plus, if, let's say, you suspect hypoglycemia or you have to exclude hypoglycemia. So finger stick glucose or GM or Reflolux, whatever that you call it, is very readily available in your crash cart. So you have to do it. It's part of the diagnosis of diarrhea. And if you suspect a Wernicke's, then you give thiamine before you give the glucose. Okay, so case 1, this is a 28-year-old man, no known medical illness, brought to emergency after suffering a seizure at work. So unfortunately, pre-hospital care did not administer any medications in the field or en route to the hospital, and seizure activity started approximately 22 minutes ago and continues. So what is the appropriate first-line pharmacology agent to treat this patient's status epilepticus? So you have IV levetiracetam, which is familiarly known as Keppra, IV lorazepam, 2 mg bolus, IV diazepam, 0.15 to 0.2 mg per kilo, which is sometimes you start with 5 to 10 mg, propofol, 1 mg per kilo bolus, or phenytoin, 20 mg per kilo. Okay, so before I answer that, so this is based on our Malaysian consensus guidelines of management, which is the pre-hospital treatment. You can have either, if you cannot have the IV access at the point of time, you can have IM or buccal midazolam and rectal diazepam or rectal diazepam. And for early, you can have IV diazepam at 0.15 mg per kilo. So about 10 mg for 60 to 70 kilo. You can repeat once after 10 to 20 minutes if the seizure continues. Okay, so is actually diazepam, but having said this, this is a Malaysian guideline, which is what we used to do. I mean, we practice. But there is a study comparing the efficacy of diazepam and lorazepam, actually, obviously compared to placebo. So they found that actually lorazepam is actually more efficient in aborting seizures upon ER or ED arrival compared to diazepam, but and also related with somewhat similar respiratory or cardiac complications. So in overseas, they prefer lorazepam, but in our case, lorazepam poses a significant difficulty because it needs to be refrigerated, it needs to be frequently compared to diazepam. Okay. So what if no IV access? So it's normal, right? When you have seizing patients, sometimes tak sempat nak cari IV access kan. So we have they do a Rampart study which shows that IM midazolam for pre-hospital status epilepticus is non-inferior, as actually 10% more patients were seizure-free at ED arrival with IM midazolam compared to IV lorazepam. So it is at least as good as IV lorazepam in terminating SE in pre-hospital setting. So this is also in the Malaysian guideline where they actually proposed or they actually recommended that all ambulance services, including those provided by the non-government organizations, should be equipped with benzodiazepine, at least imidazolam or diazepam. So pre-hospital treatment, so this is the recommended dosing for IV access, kalau ada IV access or no IV access. So lorazepam you can have 0.1 mg per kilo, maximum 4 mg per dose. Clonard is also an alternative in adults, is for 1 mg, and diazepam is 0.15 to 0.2 mg per kg. If you have no IV access, your options are either midazolam or diazepam. Okay, so now the ambulance arrive, the patients arrive to the hospital. So this is where your emergent initial therapy and your urgent control therapy comes together. So case 2 is a 50-year-old man presents with seizures lasting 14 minutes, which stop for 2 minutes following lorazepam 4 mg times 1 dose. So the seizures then recurred without returning to the baseline. So does this patient meet criteria for the diagnosis of status epilepticus? Yes. Okay. So yes, because the patient has a history of seizure activity, or is it because the seizure lasted longer than 5 minutes without return? D. Yes, I heard someone said. Yep. So the answer is D. Back to the definition, is prolonged or rapidly recurring convulsions lasting more than 5 minutes without return to neurological baseline. If nothing else, this is your take-home message. So this emphasizes again and again the importance of more rapid treatment of prolonged convulsions. Okay, so when patient comes in ED, I think this is an ED near need. It's the same thing. You have to reassess the patient, ABC again, and put cardiac monitoring, take again the vital signs, establish IV or IO access. There is none yet, and treat hypoglycemia if there is, and take the blood investigations. For imaging, actually the CT imaging should be individualized according to patients, but generally patients with status epilepticus or patients that did not return to baseline, you should consider head imaging to exclude the CT plain, at least to exclude a rapidly treatable cause. And lumbar puncture if you have a suspicion of infection or subaeronaut hemorrhage. Okay, so initial hospital treatment, this is just a comparison of the agents used in initial hospital treatment. Like I said, this is overseas. So lorazepam have the highest overt success rate with somewhat acceptable side effects. But I think for our setting, we usually use phenytoin as second line. So this is the dosing for adult initial hospital treatment. Again, lorazepam you can give IV 4 mg over 2 minutes, and you can repeat in 5 to 10 minutes, so 8 mg maximum. But usually what we do is we give diazepam 5 to 10 mg or 20 mg or midazolam, right? But urgent control options is basically your second line. Your second line therapy is phenytoin. and also fosphenytoin. Fosphenytoin, I don't think we have here, but fosphenytoin is basically a prodrug of phenytoin. So it's supposed to be more rapidly absorbed, and it can be diluted in a lot of other solutions compared to phenytoin. So another option is your phenobarbital and also your Keppra. So loading dose of Keppra is 1 to 3 gram IV over 5 minutes or 2 to 5 mg per kilo per minute. Okay. Cool. So you did the investigations. You start the treatment. Have the seizure stop? So did you establish the diagnosis or not? So always go back again, reassess the patients. So if the the seizure is terminated, then you have to further work out for the etiology. For example, if CT plane doesn't show anything and you still suspect something else, and probably he needs a contrasted CT or probably an MRI. You have to start a long-acting anti-seizure medication to prevent seizure recurrence. And according to the ENLS, fosphenytoin and Keppra is actually good options as they are available in IV formulations. But for our setting that we are more familiar with Epilim and also phenytoin, study found a similar efficacy. Yeah, so, but if not, back to baseline, if possible, if you have access to a center that have continuous EEG, then you should refer to centers that have continuous EEG. Okay, so, but what if the status continues? Then the recommended, again, for ENLS is fosphenytoin, but for our practice, the options is phenytoin, 20 mg per kg, up to 50 mg per minute with cardiac monitoring, and phenobarbital or IV Keppra. So you can see it's actually very similar, the urgent, the emergent, and the maintenance, but it depends on your preference and your availability of the drug at your center. So for example, some centers, they have first line phenytoin as your second line drug, and sometimes if that doesn't work, they can either load some more, another load, or they can try Keppra. Phenobarbital is usually quite an old drug, so it's usually associated with more respiratory depression. So not many people are comfortable to use it in urgent acute settings unless they have an ICU backup. Okay, so this is from our consensus guidelines. We actually recommended IV phenytoin or IV sodium valproate or IV Keppra, 60 mg per kg. Okay. All right, so case 2, unfortunately, the patient continues to have convulsions intermittently and not following commands in between seizure. So what is this? This is actually already a refractory SE, right? So you have to start treatment for refractory SE. Then, so they have to continues to have convulsions even after phenytoin load. So he is intubated subsequently with propofol and rocuronium, and afterwards there is no more convulsion scenes. So at this point of time, usually you have to start involving the NS as well. So this is the treatment of refractory SE, mainly comprised of infusion. So infusion of the similar agents, midazolam, propofol is also preferred, but sometimes they are scared of propofol infusion syndrome, which can have your rhabdomyolysis, your cardiac arrhythmia, and pentobarbital, like I said, severe hypotension, but IV ketamine in our guideline is actually a good alternative because ketamine have the additional advantage of anti-glutaminergic activity essential when the synaptic GABA receptors internalize and functionally inactivated in SE. Basically, they have the additional benefit of replacing the functionally inactivated receptors in status. Yeah, but of course, you have to be aware of the side effects of emergence reactions, not very pleasant to the patient once they wake up, and hypertension and tachycardia, so it's a bit tricky for patients with cardiac problem, and increased muscle tone or myoclonus, so this might interfere with your EEG if you are putting patient on one. Okay. So patient was ventilated and sedated in ICU, so workup showed possible etiology, probably infection related. He was fit-free, wind down the sedative agents after 30 hours, but after reducing the sedation, patient again fitted again. So this now becomes super refractory status epilepticus, which continues or recurs 24 hours, back to the definition, and recurs on reduction or withdrawal of anesthesia, right? So super refractory SE, sometimes you go back to why they're having the super refractory, why the fitting is not stopped completely. So at this point of time, because patient is already ventilated, so sometimes it's very difficult to pick up the SE. But you go back to your anesthetic agents balik, your IV or oral Keppra, your IV Epilim, oral topiramate if you can consider, then other things like magnesium infusion, pyridoxine, depends on what possible cause of your super-refractory SE. Steroids or immunotherapy if you have suspected autoimmune etiology. Ketogenic diet is something that I actually read and it's quite interesting. It's basically when you assume that ketones used by the brain will stabilize neuronal activities. Yeah. And hypothermia to decrease the neural activities, hence to decrease your fitting, and also other things, surgery, transcranial magnetic stimulation, and ECT. But at this point of time, I think we are already past that initial, so we are going to the tertiary. Okay, so that's about status epilepticus. There's a different entity called myoclonic status, which is patient is in persistent myoclonus. So it's not really seizure, but you have a myoclonic. And this usually you see in patients in ICU, right? Or in ward. You don't know why. Is this seizure or not? It's just myoclonus. So usually in hospital settings, the normal or common condition is caused by anoxic brain damage and acute renal deterioration. So treatment is aimed at symptomatic control. So your options can be either intravenous benzodiazepines, your intravenous epilim, and Keppra is actually useful for anoxia-induced myoclonus. So you have to have the EEG juga lah. And also there's something called non-convulsive SE with coma. All right, so this one is also very tricky. So it's actually defined as a prolonged state of impaired consciousness without obvious motor signs associated with continuous epileptiform discharges on EEG. So as you can see, you need the EEG to diagnose NCSE, and it's seen up to 8% of patients in a coma with no outward signs of seizure activity. So patients not waking up, patients not moving, patients not having myoclonus or tonic-clonic, but it's not waking up. So it should be suspected if patient did not wake up within 30 to 60 minutes after cessation of a seizure. And subtle SE may present with subtle eye movement abnormalities, for example, nystagmoid eye jerks, repeated blinking, and persistent eye deviation. So treatment options, it's just stated there that you can have intravenous benzodiazepines with simultaneous introduction of oral agents at the same time. For example, your carbamazepine, your phenytoin, or epilim. However, fortunately, associated with minimal risk of brain damage compared to their convulsive counterpart. So this is actually an EEG of a patient with non-convulsive SE. So you can see the blue arrow is where the point of the SE started. Okay, so key messages for status epilepticus, time and time and time. So its treatment of status aims to prevent prolonged seizure, T1, and long-term consequences, T2. So treatment should be initiated as early as pre-hospital period, and benzodiazepines are the first-line agents in treatment of SE and are often underdosed. So second line should be administered in adequate dose and fast. So you need to know the dosing. Don't be scared to just give the dose if and anesthetic agents should be initiated early with adequate loading dose. Non-anesthetic agents can be considered, especially in those without impaired consciousness. So you do have seizures with impaired consciousness, right? So you can consider that. So these are the key message. These are my references. And okay, I think there's 3 questions. Aha. Yes. So this one is a bit confusing. And to be fair, I was rushing through the slides, was I? So yeah, the answer is antipsychotics. Actually. So antipsychotics, like your risperidone, obviously is not a... I think you're confusing antipsychotics with anesthesia. Yeah. Okay, but anyway, good job. Good job, everyone. So any questions, I think you can answer in Slido.